I'd like you all to put on your imagination caps right now. We're going to go into a time travel to the 1700s. There are no cars. Cars haven't been invented yet. No internet. No computers. No cell phones. We're back in the covered wagon and horse and buggy days. Unfortunately, however, you're sick. Very sick. You've got dizziness, nausea. You can't stand the light. You have headaches. And all of a sudden, as you're laying on your bed, kind of blurry-eyed and feeling terrible, poof! This doctor magically appears beside your bed. This doctor isn't a doctor from the 1700s. He's from 2010. He's a modern doctor. He looks you over, and you being hurting as much as you are, don't do much to object, identifies your symptoms, and then gives you the news. Not necessarily good news. Says you have something called bacterial meningitis. And you're like, bacterial what? Never heard of that. Well, the bad news is, if we don't do anything, you're going to die. Well, that's really not hard for you to believe. You see, you've had 4 of your friends in the same village with the same symptoms die in the last month. And you're afraid. This doctor doesn't seem to be giving you any hope. He says, but, I have something for you. I have good news. And he holds up a little glass bottle with a strange little top. It doesn't quite look like the kind you would drink out of. And he holds up something else you've never seen before. It's a little plastic tube, and it has a metal thing sticking out the end. A syringe. This doctor tells you, he says, you've got bacterial meningitis, and if we don't do anything about it, you're going to die. But I got good news for you. I have something here called penicillin, and if we give you a shot of this, you're going to live. Say, well, give me a shot. What do you mean, give me a shot? The doctor explains he has to stick this little metal pointy thing in your arm and pump some liquid in there. You've never seen that done before. You don't know what that is. And that sounds painful. But he says you'll live. And you're not sure. You've seen all your friends die. And he seems nice. But you've never seen him before. And am I really seeing him, or is this just hallucination with all the dizziness and the headaches? Maybe I'm imagining this whole thing. I don't know. But you wait. And the doctor waits. And hours go by. And he just starts talking to you in a friendly tone. And after a while, you get to trust him. And you realize this is a good man. You're not sure exactly how he got here, but he's a good man. And he starts telling you about penicillin and how it was discovered and how it came from a mold and how it treats something called bacteria and it kills it. And this bacteria is this stuff that somehow in your neck and your back, because it's so sore and it hurts, and that's what's causing the headaches. And you don't really entirely understand him, but it makes sense. And you can sense that somehow he's telling you the truth. And so you start to believe this stuff in this little bottle can cure you. It can fix you. It can save your life. But he has to stick this metal thing to my arm and it's going to hurt. And so you wait. But then you start getting sicker. And your head starts hurting worse. You say, okay. And you take a leap of faith. You trust that this person that popped into your life with this medicine that you've never seen before can somehow cure you. And you stick out your arm and you don't know whether you should look or not look because, you know, this has never happened before. And so you kind of look and then you close your eyes and, ah, he did it. But I'll be darned, a few hours later, you start to feel better. And eventually you get well. You see, faith is a lot like our penicillin. We can look at God's promises, we can look at life and what God tells us, and we can say, I believe! I know it's the truth! But it takes action for it to save us. I could believe forever. You could believe forever. This penicillin's going to cure you, but until you get that injection, you're still going to die. You can learn the chemical composition of it. You can learn where it came from, who discovered it, and all the different ways it can be administered. But if you don't take it, you'll still die. God often calls His children to a leap of faith. You see, God has an agenda for us. He tells us what our priorities should be. But He makes a very clear promise along with it. Go with me. Well, actually, you don't have to go with me because I'll just read it. I'm impatient. That's one of my flaws. Matthew 6, verses 28 through 33. I'm reading from the Contemporary English Version. Why worry about clothes? Look at how the wildflowers grow. They don't work hard to make their clothes. But I tell you that Solomon, with all of his wealth, with all of his riches, he's never been clothed as well as they are. God gives such beauty to everything that grows in the fields. Even though it is here today and tomorrow it dries up. Well, in Kalinga they don't throw it in the fire. It just dries up on its own. But apparently there they threw it in the fire. He will surely do even more for you. If He pays that much attention to grass and weeds, surely He's going to do a lot more for you. Why do you have such little faith? Don't worry and ask yourselves, will we have anything to eat? Will we have anything to drink? Will we have any clothes to wear? Only people who don't know God are always worrying about such things. Your Father in heaven knows what you need. He knows that you need all of these things. But more than anything else, you just need to put God's work first. Do what He wants, and then the other things will be yours as well. God is promising us, if you put Him first, if you make Him the priority, then we'll get everything else we need. When we do what He asks, when we do what the doctor says, stick out our arm, close our eyes, and let Him stab us, we'll get well. There was another example of this. 2 Chronicles, 1st chapter, starting in verses 2. And this is a time in history just after David, I don't know if he actually died or he's about ready to die, and he passed his kingdom along to his son Solomon. And Solomon got the people together. He spoke to all of Israel, to the commanders of thousands, commanders of hundreds, to the judges, and to all the leaders in Israel, the heads of the families. And Solomon, the whole assembly, went to the high place in Gibeon, for God's tent of meeting was there, which Moses, the Lord's servant, had made in the desert. Solomon went up to the bronze altar before the Lord in the tent of meeting and offered 1,000 burnt offerings on it. When Solomon took over as king, one of the very first things he did was to acknowledge God first, foremost, and as primary in his life and in his kingdom. Here's God's response. That night God appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Ask from me whatever it is you want, and I will give it to you." Solomon answered God, "You have shown great kindness to David my father, and you've made me king in his place. Now, Lord, let your promise to my father David be confirmed. For you have made me king over a people that are as numerous as the dust on the earth. Please, Lord, give me wisdom and knowledge that I may lead this people. For who is able to govern such a great people as yours?"